So, hi everyone. Today we have Mr. Paresh Patel, the President and CEO of SLS Corp. And today is their foundation day. So, let me welcome him. So, first of all, Mr. Paresh, welcome and congratulations for your foundation day today. I
Oh,
believe
thank
it
you.
is 22nd foundation day.
Yes, believe so. I've even lost count.
22 years is a big time. I'm pretty sure a lot of experiences, ups and downs. You must have gone through the whole turmoil of, how the business is built, how have you built it. So, if you can, give us a brief, how did you start? What was your vision when you started? And is it going in that direction, or eventually you saw the direction being changed for the whole organization? How has your experience been?
Yeah, so SLS was started in basically 2001, and the whole intent was to bring uh, semiconductor intellectual property into India so that companies in India could use that intellectual property to build their own ICs, chips, products, right? And so that was the original intent. And I had a bunch of IP that I had developed over the years and through acquisitions and other things. So the IP was brought to India. I met a lot of people. Everybody shook my hand and said, "Great job! You're doing a wonderful thing for the nation." But nobody purchased anything. So that was a real reality moment. I spent almost a year and a half, 2 years just trying to basically incubate the idea of providing intellectual property and the services around that and build chips in India. And maybe I was 20 years too early. Don't know, because now semiconductor is the hot thing.
Yes.
But that was the original intent. And so since that original vision wasn't there, and my vision was actually to create product and eventually create product. So then the stopgap measures were, what can I do? I had a lot of friends in the Bay Area, a lot of friends in the UK, and so then we started taking on design services projects for those friends that had problems to solve in the engineering space, and we were using RIP to develop various controllers and other products in a FPGA, which is a field programmable gate array. You can think of it as a blank slate of a chip, and we can basically personalize that chip by writing software that eventually turns into hardware um, using other software tools. And so that's what we ended up doing. And then those customers ended up saying, "Oh, Presh, you do this work. Well, can you write us some software drivers for that?" Well, the answer is, yes. And then they said, "Well, if you write the drivers and you have this piece of silicon and you're putting inside a chip, can you build a board for us?" And so the answer was yes. And then slowly, basically, anytime the customer had a requirement, we figured out a mechanism to build it the way they wanted it, and successfully build it, right? And so they kept on coming back to us with more and more types of development efforts. And then at the end of it is like, "Presh, here's my design on a piece of paper. Can you make this into a box product for us?" And so that's essentially what we were doing. So we were doing, so from where I started, which was, trying to do semiconductor IP and products around semiconductors, it went to doing actual products for various companies other than our own. And my original vision was to actually use our IP and build our own products to sell to the world. And so we got there close, but it wasn't our product. And now we've kind of switched over and started. Basically, really pared down the service side of things, because what happens is when you do services, you end up just doing services. You don't end
Yes, yes.
So the idea was is that I would we had all these customers that wanted product, and we are building product for others, and the intent was to start using and building our own products. And so, but with services actually pretty easy. You know, it's easy money in that sense. So we
Mhm.
were doing services, and then we were trying to do our own product, and I found that ultimately, because money flows in from services, you tend to give that more weightage, and you have a customer that's relying on you, right? Whereas the product is your own definition. You have a set schedule, you try to meet that, but you know, the customer says, I have a problem, you need to solve it quickly. And so then the only way to solve it is to throw more resources at it. And so we ended up saying that, oh, where do we get these resources that have the ability to actually jump in and work? Well, those were found in the product development for our own products. And so then we moved them over. And then, so then what happened is our products that we tried to build would languish. And so then I decided, you know what? Let's stop until we get to a certain stage where the products are there, are available as an SLS product. Then we will start the services up probably as its own entity or as its own division of SLS. So it's completely managed separately and stuff like that. But anyways, you know, to your question is what did I originally intend to come for and where am I at now? It After 20 years we kind of got there.
Yeah. True. And
Right? But
after looking at the whole let's say journey that you explained, from focusing on services and then coming out with the product now, just correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the sustainable way to build a product which is technologically sound and exactly made as per the customer's requirement, because you spent 20 years in service and now the product is out because you know what is needed by the let's say the market or the industry or the customers, right?
yeah,
So
that's right. That's right. That you know, so you know, you can't say that the services amounted to no
yes.
nothing, right? The services did help us gain a lot of experience, and I found that, you know, there, frankly speaking, in India, there is a lack of engineers that come out of college or even have 3 4 years of experience. They still don't have some of the fundamental knowledge that's necessary to build something. You
Right.
know, a lot of it right now is that, please tell me what to do. And when you're doing product, it's not like, please tell me what to do, how can I do something? You know, you know, so that's that. There's a that small nuance makes a huge difference. And so by doing the services, by having these people train up on basically some other person's dime, essentially, but you know, we'd make sure that we deliver properly and appropriately. But it gave people an exposure that allowed us to build our own products.
Right. And you know, since I know SLS pretty well, I'm aware of the let's say variants and different kind of products that you offer. And you know, I've seen the when it comes to the EV charging products, right? I would want you to also give us a gist of what all different offerings you have, and
Mhm.
then also focus on you know the variants, the different kinds of chargers you have, because you've got a huge variation at different for every let's say use case or every application you've got a charger available, right?
Right.
So how did you land to the idea of coming out with the whole range of chargers? You know, do you think that Indian market is ready to accept all the different varieties of chargers, or you are taking a bet on it and you are still figuring out, you know, what kind of charger goes in
Right.
volumes in India and whatnot?
So let me just start by saying kind of the foundational story on how we got into chargers. And how we got into chargers was, again, we were doing a lot of service work that was in power electronics, doing traction control systems, which were taking essentially AC from the lines on the overhead lines of a train, converting it to DC, and then reconverting it back to a nice, clean, controllable AC for the induction motors on a local,
Okay.
right? Now, if you look at those components or the pieces, we're doing it on a massive scale because the locals are huge things. Now we said, okay, when we saw the EV charging was becoming a thing and there was traction in India to start it, we said, oh, why don't we take that experience and then translate it over by creating an AC charger. Now, and so my whole view on charging was that the bulk of India needs AC charging. But the market or the press basically had the idea that India needs DC charging at the time. And all the valuations for a lot of these companies 2-3 years ago were all based on DC charger.
DC
And,
charging.
and the reason why that is that actually the charging mechanism and the amount of energy delivered per charger looked very good on paper using DC. Okay. I could, one 60 kilowatt DC charger in 1 month, with a good, 60-70% utilization can basically deliver 3 megawatts of power. And then you multiply the 3 megawatts times the money that you'd make per kilowatt, and then you multiply that by the number of chargers that India would need DC, and then you say, my God, this company's valuation is huge, right? So people played that valuation game to basically bring in money, but the harsh reality is that for DC chargers, the power isn't available in India, readily. You have to apply for new transformers. You have to build the infrastructure, and that cost is almost sometimes exceeds the price of a DC charger. So, anyways, long story short is I figured that India would first start with AC chargers because if you look at it, DC chargers are only necessary to go from city to city, right? When you're in the city, it makes sense that you're going to go and do shopping, you're going to go eat something, you're going to do something. Let's do micro charges
Right.
using AC that keep on doing it. And the max range you're going to be within city to city is 12 to 15 kilometers. And so you can easily go and charge your car in various AC plug points to charge it. And then, of course, then that will be, movement in around the city. And then let's say if you're a commuter, what you'll end up doing is just charging overnight at home, going to your office place. You may have a charger there and you can plug in there and you'd come back. So again, it's an AC charging. There's no reason for you to you have a fast charge per se. So we started with an entire line of AC chargers starting from 3.3 kilowatts all the way to 44 kilowatts. Now you may think, oh, but there is no car that accepts 44 kilowatts. Absolutely correct. The buses would accept 22 kilowatts and 44 kilowatts, right? So we made chargers that also could basically connect up into and charge buses on the AC line. So that was there. But for the commercial chargers and the home chargers, we basically started from 3.3 kilowatts all the way to 11 kilowatts, which is the name. And we have a 19.2. But again, in India, cost is key, right? Not only for the charger cost, but also the car cost. Now, as soon as you put an onboard charger that goes above 7.5 kilowatts, the cost of that onboard charger is quite expensive. So manufacturers don't want to add extra cost because they know Indians are cost sensitive. And so therefore you have typically people would put a 3.3 kilowatt or a 7.5 kilowatt charger. So the bulk of although we have a big range, frankly speaking, the bulk of our chargers that will go into commercial and home type of scenarios would be 3.3, 7.5, and 11. And 11 is on the high end because if you look at a car, the 1 crore cars, EV cars, of course, they accept 11 kilowatts, 19 kilowatts type of AC charging because they have everything built in because you've paid for it essentially.
Right.
So that's on the AC side. Then, so as we developed our AC story, in parallel, we started the DC story as well, because we knew that, okay, charging, you're going to need a mix of both. So
Right.
then we started also our DC charging. And the first one that we came up with was the 60 kilowatt chargers, because a lot of government tenders were looking at, 50 and 60 kilowatt charging. So we said, okay, that drove our engineering to do a development on the DC side that started at 60 kilowatts. And so we made this robust 60 kilowatt charger. But in the back of our mind, we also said that that 60 kilowatts should be expandable up to 240 kilowatts in 30 kilowatt increments. So inside the charger, the power module is at 30 kilowatts, and we can put 8 of them inside.
Okay.
Right? So then you can get 240 kilowatts, and you can put dual gun or single gun. And the dual gun can deliver all 240 kilowatts, or it'll give you, if you're using both guns, 120 and 120. So we have those options, and that's scalable all the way from 60 to 240. Then we came up with one more charger, because again, as we started deploying, we found out that it takes 3 to 4 months in some states to just get a transformer that can do 80 kilowatts, so that you can actually put a 60 kilowatt charger and maybe some both DC and AC charging, right? And so transformers aren't available. It costs a lot of money. The deposits are there. All this infrastructure that you have to build, and then when you get the power fluctuates so much. There's all sorts of issues there. So those learnings basically allowed us to understand, yes, we have to make sure that our chargers operate for the heat of India, for the power quality of India, and the power, outages in India, and making sure that our charger, when power goes off, it nicely comes down, nicely comes up. If the power surges, it doesn't damage the systems. So a lot of learnings happened in this arena, and we basically then decided. Then it was the India then should be ripe for anywhere from a 20 to 30 kilowatt system, because a lot of businesses already have a 3-phase energy that's an easy fix to get 30 kilowatts, or an easy fix to get 20 kilowatts. So you still get a fast charge, but it's not 15 minutes fast charge. No car will charge from 20 to 100% in 15 minutes, no matter what you do. Unless the battery size is only 10 kilowatts, right? So if you look at the Indian scenario, most of the cars that are into the Indian scenario are about, you have a battery that's about a 30 kilowatt battery. If you look at a medium Gaussian curve, the median is about 30 kilowatts, and then it starts getting up above that to, maybe it's a skewed Gaussian towards the higher end. You get some cars that have 20 kilowatts and stuff like that, but those are far and few between, again, in order to save cost. Then you have 44 kilowatts, 49 kilowatts, 50 kilowatts, 60 kilowatt type of things. But that becomes the number of cars that have the higher battery pack starts tapering off pretty quickly. But now, if you think about it, if you have a 30 kilowatt power pack battery, then that means that you can charge that entire from 0 to 100% theoretically in 1 hour. Okay, yeah. Right now, and so then if you need to do point charging and stuff like this enough, then basically from 20 to 80% charge, that's 60%, right? So now, so you take 60% of 1 hour, and you can basically charge yourself adequately in 40 minutes. To that 80% level. So the idea is that, and you won't go on a DC charger. Typically, people will not go to the DC charger when there's 4% battery left, because it's too dangerous, right? Too dangerous in the sense that you may not find a charger. So people will still keep on topping up when the car is at 30-40%. So that means that aggregately they only have to spend 30 minutes max at a 30 kilowatt DC charger, which is fine right now. And so especially since these DC charging stations will have auxiliary things to do at the charging station, take a break, eat something, that type of stuff. So in that scenario, we feel that the 30 kilowatt charger in India is actually a ripe charger to basically introduce, and we've done that with a pillar charger. A lot of people bring these chargers that are wall mounted. Here's another issue, is that in India, where a 30 kilowatt charger does weigh at least 40-50 kilograms, okay? And when it's made with metal enclosures and done correctly, which is what we do. So there is a little bit of bulk to it, a bit of heaviness to it. So if that's the case, what wall in India, is going to be able to accept that and stay intact unless they've made it of RCC and of good construction? But as you travel all around India, you get walls of varying capacity, varying structure. So then we decided to basically, by adding just a little bit more metal, to create a pillar charger, right? So then everything fits in nicely. Its serviceability is there. We can manage the heat. And so we've made a nice 30 kilowatt pillar charger that can handle the Indian scenario and is very easy to install. So that's kind of the range of chargers that we have. And we have more innovations coming in chargers because we are a make in India company. When you look at the control systems that were there, when you look at all the various systems that are there, they are being made in India, and we're even now have internal innovation to actually make the power modules ourselves in India. So we're trying to basically address the government's FAME schemes in earnest and actually build the products here in India. And the nice thing is that now the charging cables are built by others in India. So we're starting to see that, and we're starting to source them from that, even though the cost is higher. But we feel that, there is a level of nationalism that should happen, and we're trying to make sure that that happens. So those are the ranges of chargers. And then, we have various chargers to address certain market segments. So for example, two-wheelers, now with type 6 and type 7 standardization and DC charging for that, we'll come up with a two-wheeler charger. So that's in progress. We'll come up with chargers for societies which have a different use case and scenario, and so we can lower the aggregate cost. So what we've been trying to do is make chargers that basically do a cost performance benefits on both sides. So that's really what the fundamental thing is, especially in the India market. And then we use that experience to basically go off and go to the rest of the markets in the world. So the designed in India, made for Indians, built by Indians, and for the world, right? So that's
since you mentioned, all these products are designed here, and I know for a fact that SLS is known for their expertise in R&D, right? And do you think there is a huge, let's say, work that you have to put to build a product for India, and it becomes easier after that to take that product outside for the global market, or is it the other way around?
No, actually, see, the Indian scenario can be viewed as one of the harshest environments, except for, okay, Middle East is a different story, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and stuff like that. But we're a good mix. So if you go up north, you get the cool side of things. You go to Middle India, you get heat. Even South India, you get heat. So you get a mixture of the various climates. You get a various mixture of how people use the charger, right? So mentality, and then you get a different idea of the installation, how people are insulating, or how terrible installations are done, right? And so those learnings actually are great, because then you can have a robust product. If it's it's just like if you can drive in India, you can drive anywhere in the world. If you make a product in India that's built in India for the Indian environment, it can go anywhere in the world as well. But it's not converse, right? Because we see a lot of chargers that come from China, they
Right.
get here, and there are all sorts of issues,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, or China, or chargers built in the European areas and then brought to India. Those also fail for one reason or the other.
Right.
So those are so those things that we've kept in mind. And yeah, so
No,
that's
you
that's
articulated it very beautifully. The diversity that India has in terms of climate, in terms of let's say the people, the usage of chargers and everything. I think that is what is eventually helping India to come up with products which are meant for any sort of environments globally. And SLS, since it's investing a lot of time on R&D, understanding all the scenarios and giving offerings from 0 to 100 whatever possible, and eventually planning to add more and more solutions to it, right? Now this involves a lot of operational work,
Mhm.
and there is a skill set gap that you mentioned. Do you think there has been a difference in terms of let's say handling the operations from all the aspects 20 years back and now? Has it become more easier? Has it become more difficult because a lot of things are happening at once and you have to focus on your vision of building sustainable products, but give all the products as offerings?
Yeah, so there is a market difference between the type of engineers that could be hired 20 years ago versus now. You have a lot of engineers that understand IoT, that
Yeah.
understand software, that understand that. I wouldn't necessarily say they understand hardware still.
Mm.
But they do understand the software, and you see a lot more people understanding the IoT nature of it. Um, Back then, I had to hire people and train them up from a hardware perspective. I still do that, hire them and still train them up on a hardware perspective, because um, you know software is frankly actually easier, and a lot of people, whether to start your own startup or to join a company, a lot of it is software related,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And so the IT sector, everybody wants to join the IT sector, and you can see that in the universities. It's very hard to find the EC and the communications guys. Those guys are actually dwindling. Some departments have closed because there are no enrollments
Students
in
are
that
there.
in that
Yeah.
in that field. Mostly everybody goes into the software side of things, because India's been a software powerhouse. And good news is that Modi ji's government is really trying hard to bring manufacturing back into the fold, to bring hardware back in the fold, because I think it's that combination of hardware and software that will make India a powerhouse in the future. And so, by doing that, by having grassroots hardware companies build up, but that ecosystem still isn't 100% there. It'll be there, but yeah, grassroots hardware companies and engineers that really understand what a data sheet means and how to read the registers and how to program that is what's required. And I
Right.
think that's so the difference between 20 and now is that we have a lot more people understanding software and the cloud and all those things. But still,
The hardware is still a
maybe
challenge.
someone will disagree with me in some areas, but
Right.
my feeling and my experience is we still have to get. It's very difficult to find out of colleges good trained up hardware engineers.
Right, right. So now, we've discussed on the challenges you faced initially, and let's say the overall ideology for SLS that runs behind sustainability and giving out the best possible product, and that
Mhm.
comes out of the experience of a service-based experience throughout the years, right? Now,
Yes.
to before we end this, what kind of companies do you think should approach you with what kind of problems that you can solve, and how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I guess basically the kinds of companies that need product, of course, will build product, and those guys companies can reach out to us. Companies that have pointed problems that need a service can come to us. So yeah, we have, like I said, we have the entire ecosystem within our company, from mechanical to PCB design to SMT manufacturing to testing. All of that remains in one company, and they can come to us and engage in any particular area that's there. But of course, we'd like to sell products, but if they want to engage, and we're more than happy to help people build their own products. So, just reach out to slscorp.com, and there's no issues there.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mr. Paresh. Thanks for your time. And for all the viewers, he's joined us
My
from
pleasure.
California.
Yeah,
And
no, my pleasure.
we are glad, yeah, you took out time.